Hi, I'm Chris for Water Trails. Join me as I voyage into the wilderness on a small boat. Far to the northwest lie the islands and fjords of the Great Bear Rainforest, a Pacific coastal habitat like no other on Earth. A place where it rains a lot and rarely gets high temperatures, and the sea is cold and unforgiving. But yet these mysterious fjords have the power to lure adventurers and nature lovers. This place beckons me to explore, to be in the wild, and to capture it on film. This is what I set out to do, a 2-week expedition spanning over 200 miles, witnessing some of the most iconic wonders of the Pacific Northwest. I began this journey at the Port Hardy boat ramp. To reach this place, I had to drive several hundred miles from my home, taking a ferry across the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and sleep in my car after arriving at Port Hardy late at night. The vessel for this trip is an 18-foot, home-built, plywood, low-powered cuddy cruiser, an AF4, designed by Jim Mikulak. It's quiet, inexpensive to operate, weighs only 600 pounds. The cabin is 8 feet long and 3 feet high with plenty of sit-up room. The cockpit is 6 feet long and 4 feet wide. The objective of this trip is to successfully cross Nakwakto Rapids and explore the fjords beyond them. I attempted this before, 3 years ago, in a 15-foot sailboat with a 2.5 horsepower motor. What I didn't know at the time was that the tide tables were not adjusted for daylight savings time, so I was always wrong in my tide predictions, which led to a lack of confidence in crossing these notorious rapids. I was surprised at the smooth conditions of the open water of Queen Charlotte Strait. I make my way to Schooner Channel, heading through a very shallow and kelp-filled passage. That's the Southgate group of islands passage at low tide. I had no idea it was that bad at low tide. This is called dead slow. It's as slow as I can make this boat go without coming to a stop. So here I am at the opening of Schooner Channel, right at the beginning of it. And I'm testing to see whether the tide is actually coming in. It's really hard to predict because it looks like it's going out. I see a stick drifting out. So I'm starting to drift backwards now. Quite a ripping current through here. Soon after this, I noticed my cell had a text message. Unexpected, since there wasn't a cell signal. Gotta get past that rock up there. Whoa. It was from my cat sitter, whom noticed my cat had a tooth infection. I backtracked to the island group called the Murray Labyrinth, and miraculously managed to send her the go-ahead to take her to the vet. This was my second time to the Murray Labyrinth, difficult to get into because of many rocks and kelp, but a favorite anchorage because it's normally empty of boats. Peaceful, and the waters are full of life. I enjoyed a tasty steak before it went bad. I try not to worry about my cat, and explore the islands in my pack raft. The anchorage is well protected from wind and waves and has good depth, so low tide is not a threat. In the morning of day 2, I arrived almost an hour early before Nakwakto Rapids slack tide. Having confidence in the AF4's ability to hydroplane, I make a hasty move and cross the rapids early. The current here can get up to 18 knots, but this day's tide is a small one, so it's much less threatening. Ahead of me lay the Seymour Inlet in all its glory, making my way into an undeveloped natural wonderland where towering cliffs dominate the skyline. Here I find the entrance to Alison Sound, a secret passage into a land of waterfalls and grizzly bears. It is here where I will stay the next 4 nights, in awe of the scenery and the depressing rainstorm that would soon come to my boat. After spending 2 nights at the head of the sound, I spend 2 more nights in a small cove waiting out storms. By draping a plastic tarp over my bimini, I fashioned a make-do cockpit enclosure. I find an ancient pictograph depicting the native people's first encounter with the white man. Making use of a temporary lull in storms, I make my way back down Belize Inlet and recross Nakwakto Rapids. Yikes. Rapids right there. By steering to one side of the channel, I avoid the worst, since once again my timing is off. A cruising guide I had led me here, called Anchor Islands Cove, which I found too deep and narrow to let out enough scope for anchoring. All of my anchorages that I had marked out had failed me for one reason or another. They weren't any good. I realize now just how rare places like Cougar Inlet are. So I'm just about out of gas in this one tank. I have a big ass storm chasing me down right now. Getting close to 8 o'clock at night. So this is the last remains of the day. And I can't wait to throw out anchor and call it quits for today. I'm going to look for a path. I know there's a rock on that side that you got to look out for. I did hit some kelp. Hopefully it didn't wrap around my prop. Certainly know it when you hit kelp, man. Pretty strong stuff. I recall last time this was a really good environment because it protects you from the ocean winds, and at the same time it doesn't encourage rain from having big mountains around it. So it's one of the best little climate zones you can find around here. And for 2 nights I stayed at anchor at the end of Cougar Inlet, enduring one storm after another, but it was quite a pleasant stay. About as good as you can get. Day 8, I moved 10 nautical miles from Cougar Inlet to Miles Inlet, which required traversing a stretch of open ocean. There were 20-knot winds with intermittent rain showers, which hastened my progress to the narrow entrance. This entrance is near Cape Caution, a notorious section of the Alaskan Inside Passage, because there isn't protection from the open sea. It's like about a 4-foot ground swell. Looks like it's starting to settle out finally. I think that's the entrance. This is open ocean right here all the way to Japan. So this is the entrance to Miles Inlet. That's what it looks like. After moving my anchoring spot 3 times, I settled in and launched my tiny pack raft. Miles Inlet has several shallow passages that can be explored by dinghy. One rainstorm after another kept me from launching the drone. Only one other vessel, a large power cruiser, shared the inlet for the night, so I pretty much had it all to myself. It is well protected from the swell. However, its proximity to Cape Caution made it windy. Exploring the back channels in my pack raft was a lot of fun, and I hope to return someday when it is sunny. I only had a couple of days left to cruise, and the weather was awful and had taken its toll on me. I decided to start making my way across Queen Charlotte Strait in the morning. As I made the churn down Miles Inlet toward open water, I saw in the distance a fog bank. There's the shoreline of Bramham Island. There is the reefs and little islets out here. There's a little, I think there's a rock right there. Yeah, I'm only going about 4.5 knots through this. And I found that if I just follow my track on my GPS that I came in here on, it's leading me through it. Because my real nav system broke because I sat on it, which is a GPS dongle into my computer with all the charts loaded on it. I took several breaks along the way, waiting for the fog to thin, as in this beautiful spot in the Southgate group of islands. I'd wait until I could view a mile and see how far I could go before it was too thick, and then I'd stop again. I just wiggled my way through that minefield at low tide. Let me tell you, that took some wiggling to get through. I got to go through that gap right there. Day 10, I make my way to my starting point of Port Hardy. In the morning, I wind my way through the Gordon Islands. The chart showed a small rock in the passage which I hadn't noticed. The current was strangely pushing the boat toward a debris raft. Then I noticed a patch of kelp to the left. I passed to the right without incident. I rechecked the chart and found I had passed right over rocks which dry at low tide. I trailered the boat south through pouring rain and stayed that night in a warm hotel in sunny, warm Chemainus, BC. The next day was the ferry ride back across the Strait of Juan de Fuca and the end of the adventure.